Okay. Rahma Zein, here's my question for you.
Can I say something?
Let me just ask you first of all, what should Israel have done after October the 7th, if not go after Hamas, the people who perpetrated it?
I just need to respond. Mr. Hassan, I truly do apologize that your type of relationship with your father has led you to this quest to condone the annihilation of your own people. I truly am sorry for that. But just as you said, it is not about you. Unfortunately, what we're seeing today and how we're seeing it, it is bigger and it is older than Hamas. When you look at the Palestinians, predominantly, for example, yesterday there was one protest with predominantly Christian Palestinians. It is much more than what we are seeing today. The right of return, the fact that, you know, it was actually quite interesting. You have some Zionists here telling the pro-Palestinian protesters, go back home. And their response is, we want to. So come join our protest so that we can have the right to return, end the siege. Whatever you do, and you just said, you know, you have, at one point you get so oppressed, there, you have to fight back. You just said that. So what ends up happening, and you have to understand that, as everyone, and Piers, on your show, so many people have said the same thing. You are going to keep having more resistance as long as you don't do something about it. And you keep speaking about the hostages. What about those that are being abducted from the West Bank? What about those that are in prison? What about the children that are in prisons? At some point, you have to stand up and say that this cycle has to end. And how does it end? By changing your tactic, by putting those that are the perpetrators accountable.
Give Mosab a chance to respond. I mean, the suggestion is that you are driven by personal enmity because of your family situation, with your father being one of the founders of Hamas, and you've since renounced that side of your life and that part of your family. What do you say to that charge, that somehow you're driven by that more than anything else?
Right. Well, it is not only personal, it's fundamental. What I did during the second Palestinian Intifada, I risked my life on a regular basis to save human lives from Hamas' brutal suicide bombing attacks, because Hamas terrorism did not start on October 7th. We're talking about waves of suicide bombing attacks that targeted civilians indiscriminately, where Jewish, Christian, Arabs, Muslims were killed during Hamas attacks. So our job was to stop Hamas from blowing up things. Buses, markets, beaches, beach houses, they targeted everywhere. Hamas' strategy of using civilians or targeting civilians is not a new thing. Now, for me to be sentenced to death for saving a human life because there is a belief system that says so, well, I totally reject that. And they want me to cease to exist. This is not a relationship between father and son. And by the way, I don't need your pity. My relationship with my father was an excellent relationship. I loved my father and he loved me. I'm sure he still does love me. But this is where we draw the line. When the higher interest of humanity is at risk, when people kill hundreds and thousands of civilians by the name of religion and by the name of ideology, somebody has to stand up. I am a son of that conflict and I know exactly what's going on there, not only from the Palestinian point of view, but also from the Israeli point of view. Then you invite me to come join a revolution. What revolution you are talking about? You are just creating chaos. It's the revolution only for the sake of revolution. At some point, some 30 years ago, I believed, just like you. Today, I know a different truth. And I don't advocate on behalf of a revolution that does not have sight, that does not have any moral compass. That is a revolution only for the sake of revolution. So before you tell me about your revolution and about your protest, tell me about your objectives. What's your goal? What's your agenda? What's your agenda? Who is your leadership? The American parents have the right to be concerned when they see masked men on campuses. We don't know who the hell they are. They could be activists and they could be the devil. So parents have the right to say, we don't want masked men with foreign agendas on our campuses, because you don't have a leadership, and tomorrow, if the shit hit the fan, who is going to be held accountable for this situation? Who do we go after? Why your protest is not registered according to the American laws? You are just creating chaos, borrowing some victim narrative from the Middle East and trying to Americanize it, trying to globalize it. And what we say, as a person who lived the 1987 Intifada, we don't want Intifada in America, we don't want Intifada in the West, and we most certainly don't want a global Intifada.
How should Israel have responded to this terror attack on October the 7th? 1,200 people were massacred. And the people who perpetrated this, the Hamas terrorists, they were brazenly broadcasting a lot of their despicable acts of terror to the world. Proud of it. How should Israel, when presented with an existential threat like that, and when the Hamas spokesman responds a few days later by saying, we're going to do this again and again and again if we can, how should Israel have responded?
But Hamas leadership has also tried again and again and again to call for a truce and bring back the hostages, which has been denied from Netanyahu. That's
well, they shouldn't. Well, hang on. I mean, look, on that, they shouldn't. Yeah, but hang on.
Regurgitated.
I don't think Hamas should be given any credit for keeping hostages. They kidnapped Holocaust survivors. They kidnapped babies. They shouldn't have been kidnapping anybody. So they should be giving back the hostages anyway. But my point to you, which again you haven't answered yet, I'm curious what your answer is. How should Israel have responded
if you'd allow me to continue
to such a grotesque terror attack?
Both of you stop cutting me off. I will continue.
Well, just answer the question. I won't cut you off.
I would very much like to continue.
Yeah.
No, I will answer the question the way I see fit, the way I talk. You are not going to school me as to how to respond, sir. Now, to my point. 7th of October did not happen in a vacuum. Another bigger problem is that you've had lies being regurgitated by officials from the 7th of October. I urge everyone to check www.techforpalestine.com, which gives the truth and the proper research as to what unfolded on the 7th of October.
We don't need to read anything. Hang on, sorry. I'm sorry. Look, you can't revisit.
You do need to read.
Well, hang on.
You keep cutting me off. This is the most bizarre conversation ever.
I'm not cutting you off, Rahma. I'm challenging you, as I will, by the way.
You are cutting me off. Let me. No, you can challenge me once I am done.
As I just said, Hamas broadcast what they were doing to the world. You don't need any report when you have people literally showing you on social media what you're doing and boasting about it.
It is very, you know something that I've realized through these debates is that it doesn't end up being a debate. It ends up being that I'm trying to convince you that Palestinian life is worth it.
But I agree.
Is as important.
You don't have to convince me at all.
It is quite
I completely agree.
That is, I don't...
Why are you trying to convince me that Palestinian lives matter?
I'm not... I don't even have a response to this. This is a very low conversation. Sir,
you said you're trying to convince me that Palestinian lives are worth it. I said, of course they're worth it.
I'm not trying to convince you what... But you're not acting like it is. If you saw that, you wouldn't be bringing me back to the 7th of October.
But that's what started this whole war.
You'd be talking to me about the 40,000 Palestinians who've been killed.
But October the 7th started this whole war.
Really?
Yes, it did.
That's not... Again, this is... Thank you for pointing out the exact issue that we have here. When you bring it to the point of that this started from the 7th of October, that is the problem.
This war started October 7th.
The issue of the
there was a ceasefire before that.
No, sir. No, sir.
Well, there was.
No, sir. I am very sorry to say that that Palestinians living the way they were as second-class citizens on their land even, and not just in West Bank.
That's a different question.
Or Gaza.
It's a different question, to which I would say I agree with you.
That is definitively the point.
Rahma, I agree with you.
Sir, you oppress a people Then let me finish. If you agree with me, what are you agreeing with?
I want you to answer my original question about how should Israel have responded to that terror attack. It's a straightforward question.
Because
what should they have done?
Your question, by ending the siege, by ending apartheid, by realizing that this is not a sustainable solution to keep oppressing a people.
Let me ask Mosab
Of course you're going to have a 7th of October. Of course you're going to have resistance.
Yeah, actually,
At
nothing.
one point, the pressure point is
here's my
break.
problem. I'm going to go to Mosab now, but here's my point about that. I would say that I agree with you. A lot of the settlements, particularly the expanded settlements in the last few months that we've seen, are completely outrageous and indefensible and should not be happening. I completely agree with you. But when you say that, of course, October 7th is going to happen, no, absolutely not. There is nothing to justify a terror attack on that scale. Let me go to Mosab.
Arabs had their opportunity back in 1948 to declare their independence. They had equal opportunity like the Jewish people. The Jewish people fought the British colonialism, and they shed blood, and eventually they earned their independence. But in 1948, instead of the Arabs declaring their independence, they declared war against the Jewish people. There was no such Palestine at that time. They were just Arabs. And in the British era of colonialism, Jews, Arabs, Druze, Christians, everybody in that area was called the Palestinian. The Palestinian is a colonial entity. It was not a country, and it was not a nationality. It was just a 25-year period. So now, when we convinced ourselves that we were Palestinians because of Yasser Arafat wanted us to be Palestinians, the chaos had begun. And now, Palestinian is nothing but the victim narrative, that we don't want to take responsibility for the choices that we have made. 70 years of conflict. And how many opportunities the Palestinians, or what so-called Palestinians, it's not a real thing. There are Arab children, they have the birthright to be there, and Israel has 2 million of those. So the allegation of apartheid doesn't make sense. It's just a broken record by all those who have been trying to delegitimize Israel. It has nothing to do in reality. Then the victim narrative goes on. The 1967 borders. This was area which is the West Bank. It was under the control of Jordan. And the Gaza was under the control of Egypt. They were Egypt and Jordanian territories. It was not a Palestine. Today, Israel has peace with Egypt and with Jordan. So when the Arabs launched a war and they lost the war in 1967, Israel captured some territory. This is the consequences of war. This is and the Arabs don't want to accept the consequences of defeat. Instead of saying we were defeated and Israel won, now they played the victim card. They have been playing the victim card for 70 years. And instead of accepting what is on the table to coexist with Israel, basically Israel was willing to withdraw from the West Bank and Gaza. That offer was on the table in 2000. And Yasser Arafat rejected that because the revolution has no purpose. The revolution is only for the sake of revolution. Bunch of con artists who only want to gain money and power. This is their game. And they have been using Arab children, Arab and Jewish children.
Was assassinated after the Oslo Accords, or
please let me finish. Please don't interrupt me, please. I did not interrupt you. So now the situation got out of control. The false narrative of a victim became global. It's definitely a bestseller narrative, but it's not a true story. The very basis of it, the very foundation of what's so-called Palestine is not real, because in reality there is no such thing. Now, to build all these false accusations of apartheid, of genocide, of ethnic cleansing, Only the Jewish people in the Middle East suffered ethnic cleansing and displacement. Only the Jewish people. The Arabs did not suffer the same consequences of the 1967 war because Israel did not force them to leave the territory after the war, while Egypt, your country, gave the Jewish people a 24-hour notice to depart Egypt. But the Jewish people did not do the same towards the Arabs. And this is how we have 2 million Arabs in Israel. So all the accusations, they're just baseless. And this is how they have been spreading lies to delegitimize Israel without telling us even what Palestine is. What does it stand for? Is it a nation? What do they want to achieve? This revolution and this global chaos, what's their ultimate goal? I would like to know. And most importantly, who is their leadership? Is it the Palestinian Authority? Is it Hamas? Is it the Islamic Jihad? Is it this new generation of pro-Palestine that they are irrelevant to the suffering of the Arab and Jewish children of the region?
Let me go to Rahma for your response. I mean, what is the answer to that question? Who is in charge of the Palestinians? Who should be in charge going forward? Do you see any role for Hamas at the end of this war?
It's not up to me. As Mr. Hassan clearly stated, I am Egyptian. This movement is for the people of Palestine. And it is very dangerous what you said, Mr. Hassan, because this maybe is what even started this whole thing when you had a group of immigrants coming in and stating this is a people without a land for a land without a people. There was always a people. They were the people of Palestine. And especially when we talk about history, you have to also note what was happening in the rest of the world, that this was a point where most countries were colonized and there was this whole movement to decolonize, then there was nationalism. You can't just give this brief history lesson without talking about it in length. And if you want to do so, we can by all means do so, but I don't think we have the time.
Look, very important to understand the origin of suffering. And the cycle of violence is a very long, vicious cycle of violence. And I think the root cause of this is the false narrative and the victim narrative. Instead of taking responsibility, we blame everybody. The suffering of the Gazans, do you think you are the only ones who see the suffering of the Gazans? You are not the only one.
And the West
Bank.
But
in war, people suffer.
Palestine. Please, sir.
I am from the West Bank. This is my birthplace, and I know what's going on there, and I know all the con artists who have been hijacking generation after generation. They don't care for the children. They don't care for humanity. Their game is for power and money. This is what they do. So now the situation in Gaza, we call it a human shield situation. A society that has been hijacked by Islamists who don't value life, their purpose in the other life, not in this life. Hence, they want to destroy Israel and they want to destroy all other civilizations. And this is why we don't accept this. Then it doesn't matter what happened before October 7. October 7 cannot be justified as resistance. What happened was barbaric. What happened was savagery. What happened was beyond any imagination. This is what ethnic cleansing and genocide really means. When you kill
Can I ask one question?
communities, wipe them out because of their religion, and ethnic background. What's happening in Gaza not because of the ethnic and religious background of Gazans. What's happening now in Gaza because it's their governing authority choose to make a stupid stunt and wiping out 20 peaceful Jewish communities that they had nothing to do, including kidnapping babies and elders and women. And what is this? We are in the 21st century and we have to stop these savages before they become an empire. It's our responsibility to fight. And the foot soldiers in Gaza, let me tell you something. Those soldiers, they have families. They are humans. They are my friends. They are sacred warriors who are fighting on behalf of civilization to stop savages from taking over.
Your sacred warriors.
So don't tell me about the suffering. The suffering of Gazans is the outcome of Hamas taking human shields. This is the outcome. This is Hamas crime.
What about the suffering of Palestinians in the West Bank and other areas? Israel is not
committing a crime against humanity.
Okay, I think, look,
is fighting in Gaza,
Rama,
following all war protocols.
I'm so sorry.
Hang on.
Israel, listen.
Let me just say something.
This is very important. Israel is following war protocol in Gaza. Hamas broke every protocol, moral, universal protocol in this war.